Good morning, Mr. Murray. Thank you for making time at such short notice and for honoring us by accepting the Julian Assange Award. I'm here today with Sander Compagner and Madeleine Klinkhamer. Madeleine Klinkhamer is with me on the committee together with two others. And Sander Compagner, as I explained in my message to you, he's the head of the Independent Association for Independent Journalists in the Netherlands. And he co-founded with Madeleine the Andere Krant, the paper, the only independent paper in the Netherlands. With an Assange, we had a big Assange thing when he was released. But maybe Sander and Madeleine, you want to introduce yourself for a moment.
Yeah, I can introduce myself shortly. As stated by Jamila, I'm together with Madeleine and one other person. We founded the Andere Krant, the other newspaper, in 2018, I believe, or 2017 we started. We started out as a theme paper, and nowadays it's a weekly. So we have a weekly paper that goes to our subscribers and it's all the shops. It's the only paper in the Netherlands that is has no taboos and that acts with real journalists and with real journalism. And we also founded the Free Journalists Association, which I'm the chair of at the moment. And there we are gathered with approximately 100 free journalists, and we try to help one another and by working together be able to set the agenda instead of just following the agenda from the mainstream narratives. And in that, for that reason, I'm here in this call.
Yes, Madeleine Klinkhammer, after some years in development corporation, I thought I have to be back in the West and see if I can prevent some wars. And soon I found out that besides peace demonstrations, really the key is indeed information. If everybody would know what happens, then there would not be any wars. So we founded an independent newspaper, and then I met at some point Jamila, and we really did our best to attend to do everything possible on getting Assange out. So that's where I saw your amazing work. Without you, I don't see how Julian could have been free. And I was with you at although at the back of the line in the 11th January, but I was number 15 in the line. So I was too afraid to come and chat with you and say hello, because I thought, no, then my spot will be taken. But then Jeremy and his and all the other people appeared to be in front of me, so I didn't make it in. But it was amazing to see you. I thought that night in a hotel very close by, like, oh, I have to go. They're already there, and then I was already too late.
Yeah, Madeleine and we went to London for the chain as well, together with another lady. But about you, Mr. Murray, you've got an immense track record of diplomacy and working for justice, if I can sum it up like that. You've written books about various injustices in where was it, Uzbekistan and in Africa. But most of all, the reason why you're here is because of all your work for Julian Assange. You visited him in the embassy and you wrote almost literary reports on the hearings. And I have one burning question is, when did you meet? How did you meet Julian Assange?
Well, I first met Julian back in, I don't know exactly when, approximately 2007, I would guess. And I met him because I was myself a whistleblower. I used to be a diplomat, and I left in order to blow the whistle on the torture and extraordinary rendition program that I stumbled across in Uzbekistan. At that time, WikiLeaks was quite a new thing, and sort of national security whistleblowing on a major scale hadn't really been done much in the last 30 or 40 years since Daniel Ellsberg. We have Clive Ponting here in the UK, but the Iraq War was really the occasion of my whistleblowing, the Iraq and Afghan wars and the consequences of the so-called war on terror. And that brought together those who were opposing what was happening, and it brought together Julian and I.
Yeah, okay. Well, we explained that there are two prizes really that we're handing out. One is a Dutch prize that will go to a journalist or organization that has done a lot to report for the Dutch audience about things we otherwise wouldn't have known, a bit, like WikiLeaks. And the other one, the international award, is the Julian Assange Award, will go to somebody who has done amazing work on behalf of Julian Assange and reported factually rather than going along with the smear narrative. So I will get the prize to you physically when you're back from Greece or wherever, hopefully. It looks like this. It's a book symbolizing transparency, that information should be available to everybody, and open bookness. And yes, congratulations, you're the second winner. This is the second year we're doing it, so congratulations.
Many thanks. It's a really great honor, and I've received in the last few years, I've actually received many awards on behalf of Julian Assange, because Julian's been indisposed. So I've turned up at numerous award ceremonies all around the world to receive awards on his behalf. It's rather a pleasant change to receive one for me. I'm really quite pleased. I won't say too much because I know this is to be broadcast at a conference, and there's nothing more dull if you're at a conference than listening to somebody banging on a pre-recorded video. It really takes the ear out of the room. So I'm not going to say much for long, but I do want to say these are difficult times for independent journalists, and these are darkening times for freedom of speech. They're across the Western world. There's new legislation being enacted that reduces freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. There are 4 different acts which have the effect of reducing freedom of speech been passed in the UK alone in the last 5 years. And one which is about to come into force, the Online Safety Act, which is currently going through Parliament, will make it illegal to spread misinformation. And of course, it will be the government who defines what is true information and what is misinformation. So, and the UK is not alone in this very sinister kind of development. And the increasing censorship of the internet, of which the arrest of Pavel Durov is only one example. I personally know 5 different people who have been arrested by either the FBI or the UK security services under anti-terrorism legislation in the last month. 5 people who are, personal friends of mine have been arrested in the last month.
That's Richard Medhurst,
including Richard Medhurst. That's right, Richard Medhurst, Sarah Wilkinson, Danny Shaw in the States. There's an absolute rash of it. I was myself arrested as a terrorist back last November. So these are difficult and dark times, and it's getting worse. It is extremely important we are not intimidated, but we continue to tell the truth as we see it. We continue to counter the establishment narrative. But the things are darkening in that the permitted space in which you are allowed to say things outside the establishment narrative is being shrunk. And the range of opinion which is allowed to appear in, state and billionaire-owned media is shrinking. Mm-hmm. And we're also seeing absolutely open attempts to gain control of the internet by states and politicians. So these are difficult times. I accept this award as not just reward for past work, but as an incentive to carry on, because we all have to carry on, because we're really in a fight, and fight we will.
Hear, hear. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we can still chat on, but I'll probably cut it after that. Yes, there are so many questions about Assange as well, of course, how he is at the moment. This won't be in the clip that we'll present.
Yeah.
Is he doing okay?
I saw Stella about 10 days ago. I was with Stella. And she says he's doing fine, but he's just not sort of ready to return to the hurly-burly of public life. He's still quite fragile. But physically he's fine and recovering. And he's in a good place mentally, but it's a kind of relaxed family place. I know a lot of people are worried about him and that they're not hearing from him, and they're worried that this may be because of gagging orders, or maybe because of some restraint, or something sinister may be happening. None of that is true. He's just resting until he's ready to return to public life. He will return to public life, but I'm not sure that will be within the next few weeks. You know, he may take a little longer to do that. At the moment, he's just literally chilling out on a beach with his kids, and I think after a total of, between the embassy and the prison, after about 12 years of incarceration, we should allow him that space.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah. Well, if you see him or if you speak to Stella, send him our regards. And yes.
Yeah. I will do. I mean, one thing which is sort of frustrating in a way is that there's no way to get together all the people like yourselves, people in every country pretty well in the world, wonderful people who campaigned for Julian. And I have a feeling we ought to all be able to meet in a giant beer hall somewhere. but
preferably on an Australian beach.
On an Australian beach. But it's one. It's all sort of slightly anticlimactic in a sense, and an awful lot of people keep contacting me saying, "What do we do now?" There are people for whom this campaign has been a major part of their lives, and they're not quite sure what to replace it with. And I said to them, as I was saying in my message, well, there's a hell of a fight. You know, releasing Julian hasn't solved the problem of the encroachment on the speech, but there's no. But finding the mechanism to unite people in those fights, and and whether we need to create institutions to keep the people together who campaigned for Julian or not is something we really need to think about.
Well, we're in our group that I meet up with regularly online. They're focusing mostly on Palestine at the moment. Yeah. I myself have gone on to report on Rainer Füllmich. He's a German lawyer who is prosecuted. He gave a platform during Corona to give an alternative information to people. And through him, a lot of scientists that we didn't know of got well known, like Mike Yeadon and Sukarit Bhakti, and people commenting on the other side of medicine and finance and everything. And now he is being prosecuted. He's been actually kidnapped from Mexico, just to shut him up and to make him lose his license as a lawyer. I think that's the ultimate aim, and that he cannot do anything political anymore. So I've moved on to that, and so people are finding different causes. I think that's okay.
Yeah, a bit different, but in the Netherlands next Saturday we are founding Paresia, and that means speaking truth. It's one of the Greek names for truth, and Paresia means speaking truth where it can harm you, so there is some risk in the game. And we are founding a European Free Media Association. So we want to align free. We have the paper in the Netherlands and some other free media outlets, but there are free media outlets all over Europe, of course, because everyone in all the countries it's the same at the moment, and people are rising up and people are striving to keep their freedom. But we think that it's good to align those initiatives so we can also work from a bigger perspective and see how we can support one another. And also with where can we campaign for after Julian, I think this kind of agreements can also help to set the agenda on, okay, what is our next campaign going to be? Who are we going to help, or where should we put a light on to create awareness on, all these kind of topics.
Yeah.
One, as you were saying, a lot of us have gone into, I mean, I'm spending most of my time on Palestine recently. What one twist you may be you may find interesting is that the major funds that were raised for Julian's defense were held or are held by a German organization called the Thou Holland Foundation. And being a German charity with a German board, I received notice from them a while back that they couldn't work with me anymore at all because of my views on Palestine. Because for German, the Germans have this psychological block over what is happening in Israel, and even the Assange supporters in Germany, certainly institutionally, adopt the standard German pro-Israeli narrative and are very prone to confusing human rights work and anti-genocide work with anti-Semitism. I find it quite extraordinary, but it's not. That's an extreme example of the fact that although I know Julian himself and I know Christian Raffinson share my views on Palestine very much, but not all of Julian's former supporters do. So that can be something of a divide, and certainly in terms of the Thou Holland Foundation, it's a real nuisance.
Yes. So that money that they have, they won't give for other causes now. Will they use it for the pardon?
They're reluctant to. I'm going to meet them in the middle of September to talk over things, and well, because being blunt, and this is absolutely just between us. There's actually quite a lot of money, and just where it's going to go, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. And their initial reaction to me was, it's none of my business now. But I was kind of authorized to take decisions within the Assange campaign about who got paid, where money got spent, and things. But now the Assange campaign is over. What they do with the money is nothing to do with me. It's so I'm having some informal discussions with them as to what happens next, and the important thing is that money is devoted to freedom of speech causes. Yeah. And my own view is it would be best if it's given as a series of grants to freedom of speech organizations around Europe rather than kept with the Thou Holland Foundation. But the Thou Holland Foundation don't necessarily see it that way. Yeah. So it's interesting.
I don't know if you're aware. Yeah, in Holland, where they're threatening to impose a law that from the 1st of October, that we're no longer to question the Holocaust or say anything about,
international crimes or genocides. So you're not allowed to question or to minimize or scrutinize international crimes. So that can be 9/11, that can be anything, that can be the Armenian genocide. You're not allowed to question. Yeah. So the judge is going to decide what is truth, where truth starts, then and when someone is denying that truth.
Yeah. Has it been passed? I mean, is it definite?
Yeah. It has been it has been passed already. It's going to be law per October the 1st. So
I think that, as I say, that's quite similar to some of the provisions of the Online Security Act, which is coming into force, which is going through Parliament now here. And it's part of this growing lack of respect for the whole principle of freedom of speech and freedom of ideas, and the idea that there is an orthodoxy and you're not allowed to stray outside it. And of course, once you're not allowed to challenge orthodoxy, then there can never be human progress. If you've all got to believe what the state believes now, nothing is ever going to get better. It's an extraordinary fallacious argument and very scary. But the principle, if you like, of freedom of speech used to be a founding principle of the notion of Western democracy, and it appears to be abandoned by states now, and certainly not a principle which most politicians in power would adhere to or stand up for. And that also, I think, relates to the fact that the political class are of a much lower standard intellectually than some of their predecessors, and are not accountable to the people in any meaningful way. And that accounts to, and that relates further to the massive growing wealth gap and the great imbalance between wealth and poverty in society, and the increasing concentration of capital and all kinds of things. These are quite deep things to discuss, but the attack on the causes of the attack on freedom of speech are fundamental. It's not an easy thing to tackle, and it's very hard to tackle it in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And it also states how afraid they are to lose the narrative, because when there is so much urgency to still anyone that is speaking his truth, that also means that they are kind of panicking. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be so much so hard.
Yeah, and what Kim.com said, I thought was interesting. He says that the reason the New Zealand government has now signed his extradition order is because of his support of Julian Assange. And that means then that they not only go after whistleblowers and journalists anymore, but also now of great sponsors. So that also the criminal profile, so to say, is just getting extended and extended.
Richard Medhurst told me something 2 days ago, which again, don't broadcast this publicly, if you see what I mean. But people who who subscribe to him online via PayPal in the United States, he's had feedback from a couple of them who have been visited by the FBI to ask why they subscribe to him on PayPal, which is a new development. I'd not heard of that happening before. That's really scary.
So that confirms.
We're used to PayPal being shut down. For people like WikiLeaks had all their PayPal accounts closed, and that happens to people fairly commonly. But for the FBI to actually go to your subscribers and ask them why they're subscribing to you, that's very chilling. That's really, really scary.
Some people are afraid to have a subscription on our paper, because then they think, oh, now we're going to be in the books, and now they're going to know about my whereabouts. So people are afraid of it, and when this kind of stuff comes out, people it will stop some people from speaking out or from supporting.
It go very far, even like an independent journalist in the Netherlands, or Dutch independent journalist Sonja van den Ende, who just wrote independently on Syria, on Russia, on Palestine a lot, wrote books, and they not only tried to, or they blocked her accounts wanted to take her house, and they took her ID number, her BSN number, her Dutch. So she really cannot go back to Holland. She has family here, and everybody. She's on the Ukraine list of
Targets. Yeah.
And so she's now living in Moscow. She had to leave.
We need to that's fascinating. I didn't know of that case. We need to find a way to compile a list of all of these people and bring it all together, because I'm not sure anybody is.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah. Maybe Parasia could start with a project like that. That would be great.
That would be a cool start, because everyone feels the necessity of this to address this agenda and to help these people that are being prosecuted and harassed. So that's actually a good. Next Saturday, I will propose it at the opening meeting from Parasia. That because such a project can also give us some knowability. How do you say that?
Yeah.
But it's a good idea to make an oversight of all these cases. It's going to be a long list.
Yeah.
It will be, and we need to sort of mine our contacts internationally to find, because I'm quite sure that, like, I didn't know about Dutch example. You didn't know of the people in the States who've been visited by the FBI for subscribing to I'm quite sure there's so many activists who have little pieces of knowledge, but that we need to, both via personal contact and via putting out appeals through the internet, we need to mine in the information to a central point and list it all.
And then what purpose would you see with all that information, apart from it being a record?
Well, we need to take it then to the United Nations, I think, to the Human Rights Committee in Geneva, and also, of course, to be able to publish, to say, we have got 80 individuals worldwide who have suffered outrageous attacks on freedom of speech, on journalism for opposing the current agenda, or whatever it is. My suggestion, my suspicion is it might end up being an awful lot more people than that. But
yes, definitely, yeah. It's a sort of an alternative to Amnesty International, then.
I'm not sure how. Yeah, I mean, Amnesty is very cautious on like most. Yeah, like most NGOs, most established NGOs get themselves into a situation where a certain amount of their work is actually funded by states, and then they don't want to fall out with those states. Most NGOs, the end bit of their name becomes increasingly remote. It's not true of all NGOs, but most of the big established NGOs have close relationships with their host governments, basically.
I have a meeting in a few minutes, or actually 1 minute ago. So I'm going to leave this. Craig, it was a pleasure and an honor to meet you via this and to be part of this award. So, and let's stay in touch. If the International Media Association is willing to play a part in making that list, then Jamila can bring that news to you, and maybe we can collude on this topic.
Yeah, that would be great. No, I also have to have to go. I have family obligations. I have to see to children. I have to feed.
I have one practical question. How do I get the prize to you? You said you were going to be in Germany in September. Is that an option?
Yeah, it'll probably be October. Now I'm thinking it through. But don't worry, I'll be in touch.
Okay, because I'll be in England probably for Stefania's case. I'm not sure yet because she still needs to get it confirmed.
Yeah,
and I'll be traveling, so we can meet somewhere.
Yeah, the next few weeks I'm going to be mostly in Greece and a little bit in Switzerland and very briefly in Germany. But I'm sure we'll manage to touch base.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day. And thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, groetjes allemaal ook. Bye.
Bye.
Nou, gezellig.
Oh, ja.
Heel eventjes over... Oh, wacht, ik zet even recording af.
Ja.
Pause, stop.